Spider-Man swings back into action with an all-new overcharged adventure across the 90s. Meticulously hand-drawn artwork, clean digitally painted backgrounds, and on-model colors all combine to make this one of the most authentic-looking fan comics ever made. Daring battles, shocking reveals, never-before-seen crossovers, and more villains than you can shake a web at. Grab a copy of issue 1 and get in on the action today.
I swear, this is being a YouTuber is what? Why did it stop recording? It was going fine, and then getting upset, and then crying
Welcome
a little
to
bit.
the big leagues, kid.
And then having to start all over again. Just be thankful we didn't do the whole thing, and then it did that. Anyway, hi, welcome. This is a podcast about Spider-Man 94, our cool fan comic that people seem to enjoy. That we're working on more issues, so please stop asking me on the comments and the DMs. We're working on it, okay? It takes time. If you had
read the fucking end of the last page, you'd know.
It said to be contended, and then it had an ellipsis with 4 dots, which really pissed me off because it's supposed to be only 3.
You could have cropped it.
No, it had to be the one from the show. It had to be on model.
No one would have remembered it had 4.
No, someone would have pointed it out. Everyone always points that shit out. If it wouldn't have been them, it would have been one of you two. One of you two would have been like, why'd you take out the 4th dot?
I'll color in a new one.
You bastard. Working on the comic was really fun, particularly the last 2 days where we were like panicking trying to get everything done and ready by the deadline of the 25th anniversary of the show. And there was parts like way late at night, the night before the comic went live, where I had to re-export the whole book about, I would say, 11 times. Because Jacob kept finding stuff he wasn't happy with and telling me to fix it, and in the process of trying to fix it, I accidentally bumped a panel, and like I was like clicking around kind of furious trying to make sure everything was good, and I guess I accidentally clicked on one of the word bubbles in my program and shrunk it just a little bit so that it cut a word in half.
Yeah, you fucked up page 9.
I fucked up on page 9, and I didn't notice it because it was fine before that.
And I noticed it the following day.
And then I had to fix it the following day, and there's still copies of it online, like on the website where it's not correct. But on the Google Drive and the PDF, it's fine.
Also, really quick, because I don't think Dane's ever been on the channel before. Let's introduce ourselves.
Yeah, Jacob's a recurring guest member, but Dane here is a fantastic super friend. He and I have been working together for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years now, just like chasing our dreams, trying to make comics, and so far 2 of them have come out, which is, in my opinion, a good number. And he's honestly one of the nicest people I've ever met, and I'm honored like every day to be able to work with someone as talented as him, and the fact that he doesn't already have some kind of job as an artist in the industry is nothing short of a war crime. And I'm also thankful for it at the same time, because instead of drawing like official books, he's over here drawing my stuff. And I get to exploit his talents to have the Lost meme reenacted by Abomination. So go ahead and introduce yourself with that lead-in.
So they can identify you via voice.
Well, I think you did a pretty good job. I'm just a humble pencil man. That's about it.
That's true. Anyway, you guys know me. I'm not fucking annoying child he has on the channel sometimes.
My teenage sidekick.
That's me.
He's White Miles. Well, anyway, kiddo, if you want to get through high school, you just gotta actually go. That's my advice.
That's not what you told me on this channel.
That's not what I told you 2 years ago, which was don't take it too seriously. High school sucks.
I think that was 3 years ago now, because I'm in my junior year.
Oh shit. Yeah, because you were just starting high school, and you're like, hey, can you give me any advice? And I was like, don't worry about it. Just fucking skip school all the time. It's hilarious.
It is. Skip school all the time and then color something for me.
Skip school all the time, commit crimes, and
all for my
dress up as Spider-Man constantly. Well, if you're not dressed up as Spider-Man right now, you're doing something incorrect.
Fuck, hold on. Let me go put a suit on.
It's not like you have any shortage.
I have 8 of them, I believe.
Jesus, 8? I haven't counted mine. Dane has a mask.
From me.
Oh, yeah. So that's another thing is that people may have seen on my Instagram and the trailer we did for the comic is I have a Spider-Man 94 mask. That was made by Jacob, and all 3 of us have one as a celebration of the book coming out. He made everyone working on it a special Spider-Man 94 mask.
Not only do we all have masks,
we also all have mugs.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
I remembered. See, I'm the good boyfriend. I remember things.
I just said we all have big comic penises.
But no, yeah, we also have Bomb Squad Comics mugs. Dane designed the Bomb Squad Comics logo that's on a lot of the merch. I think we actually have that listed as him as the artist on the site. Do we? If we don't, we need to.
I don't know.
Does it say this was designed by so and so in the description? Because if it doesn't, I've done a big oops. I'm getting self-conscious about it now. I gotta go look. TeePublic. Anyway, you guys talk whenever I get like distracted by something or slow down for a few seconds.
Well, anyway.
Oh my god, it doesn't say drawn by Dane. I fucked up. I need to write some emails. I need to go talk to some people. Hey, I just realized the Kingpin is not in our comic.
Yeah. He's just fucking chilling in his
Well, that's a huge spoiler.
His secret lab in the Chrysler building. When I saw that building in movies as a little kid, I was like, "Man, Kingpin's base is in those. See those big sides? They have big hydraulic like doors on them that slide down, so he can park his helicopter inside."
The Hobgoblin can terrorize him.
I'm the Green Goblin. And then he's now the canon first one, even though it wasn't how it was in the rest of the show. That's one of our favorite continuity errors in that show is that they just start, like, Green Goblin starts calling the Hobgoblin a knockoff, even though he existed, like, months before him. So, what should we talk about today? Well, for one, I guess we should talk about our experience working on the book. Regardless if the Q&A questions ask that, I think that's just an important topic to cover.
I remember one question did ask us, when did we start working on this?
When did we start working on this, fellas?
It was, you started writing it around March, and the planning area was in, like, February, I think.
Yeah, I was planning it, like, early on in the year. I actually wrote, like, I would say maybe the first issue I wrote was actually the 4th one, because
you're right.
I was more familiar with some of the subject matter in that issue, which I will not spoil, because it felt a little bit more natural to write that at the start. And then after I went back and rewatched the whole show, I felt more comfortable going back and writing, like, issue 1, because I wanted it to feel authentic. But it was hard to throw myself into issue 1.
He started writing the script in, like, late March for issue 1, and then, like, I don't know if he finished it and then Dane started drawing it, but I know that the first fully completed page was April 15th. So I started working on it in April.
Well, I mean, we should also preface this whole thing. This whole thing was Dane's idea.
Yeah, that's true. I recall like one of the first conversations that we had where me and Dane were in a voice chat, and he was like, "Look, I found the most important model sheet for the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s. It was Peter's hamper." This meticulously drawn out hamper from like 3 different angles because it's really important you don't get that one wrong.
He throws his costume into it, probably in one episode. You gotta get it right.
Costume episode 1, and that's it for the whole
That's
show.
it? What the fuck?
So yeah, this whole comic spawned from one model sheet of
We were just making jokes about the model. Because where'd you find the model sheets? Where were you just clicking around on the internet one day and found them, or like, oh shit, I can do so much with this?
Because you're working on a different Spider-Man project, and you needed some model sheets.
Oh yeah. Well, I can talk about that. I wanted to do like a Spider-Man animated show with my buddy William, because he's the one who animates all the socially inept Spider-Man stuff, and he was very particular about how we made the models, which was like basically building them in Blender over a 2D model sheet. And no matter how many times we tried, we could not find a good enough model sheet, nor could we make one that was like to his exact specifications to do that process. But while we were working on that, I asked Dane to get us some model sheets or to try it with, and he drew some really awesome ones. That maybe, you know what, you can probably put those out, because I mean, they're not getting used for anything. You can for sure just fucking post those. They're so good. It's a shame that those didn't get used. Saved. Yeah, so fucking upload those at some point. Put those on Twitter or the Instagrams, because they're really good. But yeah, so he worked on those, and I guess you found the ones for 94 as like a reference for how to do them.
Well, I kind of stumbled upon them after the fact, because I kind of knew how to do them. And I'm like, well, okay, these ones aren't going to work. What about these actual ones by professional
artists? Yeah. Because their job is to draw the same thing, identical proportions from multiple angles over and over and over.
And then it's just, that whole treasure trove of model sheets just stuck in my brain. And I'm like, we could probably use these for something, Pretty good reference for the show.
Yeah. And, well, the nice thing was that, like, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but your art style, like, you just, when you're drawing by yourself, just, I'm going to draw a picture of the Punisher or whatever, like, it's already kind of close to the art style from the show. So it wasn't like this huge leap in drawing something new. Like, maybe certain, like, character proportions are a little bit rounder, or, like, the faces are a little bit wider, but other than that, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's a little bit softer, a little bit rounder, a little bit more cartoony than I.
Because you really study under the tutelage of, like, Bruce Timm and J.R. Jr., right? Like, really kind of blocky, kind of angular art styles, which I think are really cool and underappreciated.
Yeah, because I think probably Bruce Timm, John Romita Jr., Tim Sale, and Walt Simonson are probably the most influential artists in my style, in my work.
I also see a little bit of Mike Mignola in there sometimes. Mignola, oh, yeah. I don't know how to say his name.
I don't know how to use blacks like he does, but sometimes I'll steal some of his compositions, like, subconsciously.
Because that guy's a master of layouts.
Yeah. And it's like, I've read tons of Hellboy and lots of Spider-Man, like John Romita Jr. and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of ingrained in how I think about.
That's why I sent you that Hellboy Lego.
I got it around here somewhere.
Yeah, I a couple of months back at Comic-Con, I found, like, this, like, custom Lego guy who like, he had a booth where he was just making, like, really specific ones that, like, actual Lego didn't have the rights for. And I kept seeing all kinds of cool ones that I thought my friends would like. So I sent Jacob the Marvel Zombie Spider-Man, because him and I are always talking about how much we were traumatized by Marvel Zombies Return.
He fucking shoots his veins and arteries out from muscle
that's his webs, his veins and arteries. And that traumatized me. Like, I love the rest of Marvel Zombies, but that one in particular, I'm like, oh, Why is it gotta be so fucking mean to Spider-Man? Why does this one have such a hate boner?
And I was probably younger than Xavier was when I first saw it.
Maybe that's why it didn't affect you as bad. Because I remember I read Marvel Zombies 1 when I was like that age. And a couple years later I read Return. And by that point I was old enough for it to sink in. It's like, oh my god, they're doing such horrible things to Spider-Man.
When Spider-Man was just having his fucking shit just ruined in that. I was just a little child looking at it. I was like, fuck, zombies are cool and I like Spider-Man. This is cool.
It
and
has
then,
both.
And then I grew up and I was like, this shit's still cool.
I find Marvel Zombies like 1 through 3 awesome, and I love them. I don't remember much about the 4th other than that like Deadpool was a talking head and he hangs out with Simon the White Zombie or whatever. And then Marvel Zombies Return like burned my crops and killed my dog. You may notice that there's not a lot of sound effects in the comic. Really, like, if there are, it was like there's for a moment that there's some thwips. I feel like it's mostly for moments where like it would have felt weird if there wasn't a sound effect. But for the most part, I don't really write them in a whole lot because one of my biggest influences as a writer is Garth Ennis, and like as soon as he started writing Punisher Max where he didn't have to put that shit in, he just stopped. And like I kind of for some reason I felt like, yeah, this just kind of makes the comic better. I don't know. I've kind of changed my opinion of it now. I feel like sound effects are like useful at certain times. So maybe we'll start seeing them more in like later issues while I'm lettering. I'll just throw them in or something. But I avoided that a lot back then for whatever reason.
Yeah, like there's a lot of explosion shots that, you know, the art just speaks for itself.
Yeah, I mean, do you need to know what the explosion sounds like? You can just guess. You know what an explosion sounds like. I'm sure you've heard that before in a movie, whoever you are listening to this. But, yeah, so Dane kind of pitched the idea of it to me one day. He's just like, hey, together, what if we wrote, like, and drew, like, a continuation or finale for Spider-Man? And I had 2 different ideas for it at the same time. And
you weren't even like too into it at first, I don't think.
No, I was like, yeah, all right, I guess. I mean, that could be fun. I mean, it's the thing is, as much as I like the show now, I wouldn't say I really grew up with it quite the same way I did with other cartoons. Like, I had all the VHS tapes that they put out. What'd you say?
I said Beast Wars.
Beast Wars! Yeah, we were talking about Beast Wars just before you came in. Beasties! As they called it in Dane's homeland. I guess Wars was too violent.
Canada doesn't have those.
Their helicopters are still from the 70s.
If we're lucky.
Anyway, yeah, so, like, I didn't quite grow up with the show. Like, I watched the VHS tapes that they put out of it, like, all 3 or 4 of those, and then I had the Venom Saga on DVD, and I just kind of watched those, but that's still maybe, like, 20 out of, like, 70 episodes, and all the rest were just, maybe I'd catch them as a rerun on TV every once in a while, but other than that, I really didn't watch, like, the show religiously. I mean, it was also a little bit before my time because it was, like, over by the time I was even born. I remember not liking some parts about it as a kid, too. I was like, why does Spider-Man talk to himself so much? And I didn't realize that that's awesome, and I wish every Spider-Man thing would do that.
I just said, like, what month did it end then? Because I think it ended in 98.
Oh, well, I mean, even then... if it did,
you would have been an infant.
I would have been like 3 weeks old or something. But eventually, when Dane pitched the idea to me, I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I could get behind that, I guess. I mean, sure, whatever. And I don't know. I said yes right away because I jump at the idea of working with Dane on like anything. But I wasn't like that into it. And then I started like rewatching episodes of it and like really getting a feel for it. And I was like, hey, yeah, this is awesome. Why didn't I like this as much as a kid? Fuck, this is just as good as Spectacular.
You started texting me like while you were rewatching it, like things like, I remember the sound design in this show not being as good as it actually is. Like I remember them having like one sound effect for punching and shit.
Oh yeah, I remember like I guess there's like 3 sound effects from the show from when I was a kid that always stuck with me. It was the web sound effect, the flip sound effect, that whoosh, and then the sound of Spider-Man's little feet pitter-pattering on like rooftops, the that clapping noise. And that's all I remember is just like those on loop forever. And it's not quite that bad. They do have like variants of those, but when I described them to you just now, you knew exactly what I was talking about. So yeah, I guess I didn't have like the fondest memories of it. Like I didn't hate it or anything, but I just like, it wasn't like this thing that I was like super in love with until I went back and like really got back into it. Because if it was going to feel authentic, I need to know how the characters spoke so I could get their voices right.
And absolutely did.
It took me a second to get it, is because like Spider-Man's references need to be like dated. But not too dated. He needs to kind of speak like a little bit. His vocabulary needs to be a little bit too wide. He needs to be a little bit too articulate for casual conversation when he's Spider-Man. Because like when he's Peter Parker, he just kind of talks like a guy. But as Spider-Man, for some reason, he's just like using a lot of like, you know, $10 words at people. So I had to figure out the kinds of words he would use during certain scenes. And I had to figure out like, how does Doc Ock speak? Like, it has to sound like the actual voice actors could sit down and read this comic out loud and it would not be wrong.
You did it. A lot of people were complimenting you on that.
That was one of the most important things from a script writing or script standpoint, was just making sure that was right. Because if you get that right, everything else just kind of falls into place.
I guess we've talked about penciling and wording now. It's time for color.
Yeah, go ahead. Fucking go off. It's your time to shine, baby boy.
The process for coloring this, and there was actually a question early on. And it, like, because I'm at this section, and when we got to this section last time, the recording wasn't good, so check that really quick.
Oh, yeah.
I might be the cursed one.
Oh, let me look at that right now. Let's see. Yeah, it still says still recording. Okay. Oh.
Hey.
Woo.
I'm not the fucking bad luck charm. So anyway, process for coloring. There was actually a question I saw on Twitter the other day when we asked. It was someone asked if there was like a process for inking and coloring. There's actually not any inking in this book at all.
At all. And that's insane. Like, that's unheard of, but the process just works well enough that we can get away with it.
Yeah, because it, like, having the lines be like kind of fuzzy and not super like you know, sharply inked on every page, it adds to kind of like the compression that show has, being permanently stuck in standard definition.
Yeah, all the lines are a little bit sketchy and like kind of fuzzy on everything. Nothing is really crisp ever, and it's a very specific aesthetic that we decided like kind of late into it. That we're like late into the planning stage. We're like, we want this to look like it's on an old VHS tape.
And you can see my fucking beautiful play and eject buttons on the beginnings of the pages.
Which I love.
Anyway, the process for coloring, however, since that was my job, I just like looked at a lot of shots from the show. We collected fucking it seems of screen caps from the show, and
I think I have a folder with like 2,000 screen caps in it.
holy shit, really? I have one that only has like 110.
Yeah, because I take a lot and then I pick I pick out the best ones.
I need every character from every angle because I'm the one that has to create it.
You just need the color, so you just need one. I need every,
yeah.
nuance and every
Yeah, I've got.
angle.
I think I only have 2 model sheets in here, and it's just one for Peter and one for Spider-Man, and the colors on them aren't even right. They're just close.
I mean, you guys have been looking at the colors and characters enough to like just tell if it's wrong just by looking at it.
Yeah, now like we'll usually because Dane actually did help me color a little bit once we were getting into it, like a time crunch. He would start the flats on the characters for me, but there I would do everything else, backgrounds and shadows and such. But like once we got into that stage and we already had like pages from the same kind of like location colored, so like we already knew that we were using night colors on a certain character backgrounds, we would just start color grabbing from like previous pages, because we knew that those colors were right because we're grabbing from the page that I used, which I grabbed colors from the show, so it all carries over. So yeah, it was just like watching the show a lot, looking at how the shadows react in specific shots with different types of lighting. We have the color palettes from day and night, and inside of a bright room, which is slightly different sometimes from daytime light, and inside of a dark room, which is different from night light sometimes. It's really fucking weird how it's slightly different each time.
They have like a different palette for pretty much every kind of environment you can imagine the character in.
But they're so similar that honestly, I think I probably fucked up on at least 4 of these pages, but no one's noticed.
Well,
Not
no
even
one.
you guys.
I think that's like impossible to notice unless you're like actually going through and finding the like vector code for the colors. Like, oh, this one is 17:9 red. That's not correct.
Yeah.
It's like no one cares, dude. And well, after a while, you stopped even color picking the shadows. You just started like just doing those on your own.
I did those. I did that for a few pages, but I went back to the other method that I was doing before once I got Procreate.
I don't think anyone can tell. I think that's one of those things that like
it just worked.
No one will know.
It just worked.
It's like Skyrim. It just works. Or wait, no, it's the other game.
Yeah.
It's fucking, what was it, Fallout? I don't know.
You really nailed that.
That reference kicked ass. Everyone's really impressed. Everyone's so proud of me. They're like, dude, that reference was high tier. Like, holy shit.
Stick with the 90s references.
The one thing I didn't think we'd be able to do in color, but Jacob did beautifully, was the difference between characters and backgrounds, where the character painted flat on a cell, put over top of a fully painted background. I didn't think we'd be able to get that look, but Jacob, he nailed it.
Because I remember while we were in like the early stages of it, him and I were like drawing pages. He was drawing pages and I was working on a script, and then he's like, there's only one person I want to color this, and it's Jacob, because he colored one of your early sketches, like your concept arts for it, and we were both super impressed with how on model it looked.
And you can check out my process doing that on my YouTube channel, which has nothing else on it.
It might be on screen right at this moment.
Yeah, you just watch it here, actually. Don't look my channel. Fine. I'm not making revenue. I don't give a fuck.
You gotta get that bread.
Good. I make bread from fucking selling you masks.
Yeah, selling only me masks. Hey man, it works.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. I'm sure everyone else is, but I'm not.
Hey, when are you opening commission slots again? Oh, I'm sorry, Xavier took them all.
Never, Xavier keeps stealing.
I'm sorry, they're just really high quality masks, okay?
But yeah, the painting of the backgrounds, I actually noticed by the time like we got into those last near the like the last like 8 or so pages, I was like looking forward to coloring the backgrounds more than I was the characters, and it used to be like almost the opposite for the early pages.
Yeah,
I would lay down like the characters usually first, just because like I like coloring the picture of Spider-Man.
you like coloring the cool picture of Spider-Man doing the sick pose where he kicks the guy in the back.
And then like by the time I got to the pages with Ock and Scorpion and Shocker, painting the backgrounds on those was a lot more fun, because like I think what the difference was I was using a free art program that did not have the capabilities of Create beforehand, and then I got
It's probably like a world of difference.
And then I got a program. I got Procreate, which had brushes that looked like paint brushes, and then I could paint, and it was fantastic. So that's how that went. But yeah, just is a different process. A lot of layers being used for doing like the Oscorp building and
oh yeah,
the explosions were always fun.
We have recordings of that are probably playing right now. Maybe
yeah, you can watch all those.
I think it's super cool that your guys' art program just automatically records stuff like that, because that process to me is so like mind-blowing, is taking it from the pencils all the way to that like painted background look without actually having to use a single real-life brush. It just looks so perfect and on model, and like I can't think of anything else that's really done that in a comic before, is like use like 2 different coloring styles for the characters in the backgrounds.
Oh yeah,
but I really have like thought, I've just sat down and tried to look for comics that do that, but even like Bruce Timm, like, you know, DC animated universe comics, even they still just draw the backgrounds the same way they do the characters, with like flat colors. Or if they do have a painted background, the characters are a little bit more painted style. So I'm not going to say it's something that doesn't exist before, because I'm sure there's at least one example, but it's something I definitely haven't seen often before. And it makes it really, really unique and special, I think.
The advertisement doesn't lie.
It's one of the most on-model fucking fan comics in the universe. You show me a fan comic that doesn't look nearly as on-model as this one.
Except those DC ones. Those ones are really cool.
Oh, yeah, those ones are actually awesome. You know what? I should talk to the people who make those, and we could be buddies.
Yeah.
Maybe I've already messaged them before. Perhaps.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's weird trying to, like, interact with and cooperate with other YouTubers, because even if they have a smaller following than I do, because I know them from YouTube, I go, oh, this guy's a cool YouTuber, I hope he likes me. When I have like triple their subscribers, I'm like, oh, I've watched that guy's videos, he's really cool, oh, I hope I'm not annoying.
I'm looking at the pages right now without the lettering on it, just for my colors, and like I don't know what like my favorite thing was on certain pages, because I know for sure that like painting the backgrounds for the all the stuff at Oscorp, that stuff was really fun, and I looked forward to it, except for when I was having to color rocks, and there were so many of those. Fucking freaking out by
those final few pages. They're in a collapsing building, so it's just covered in rocks.
Middle of the day, Monday, before the book came out, I was having a fucking aneurysm. The rocks were falling from the ceiling and shit. Like, but on earlier pages with like goblin stuff, it was like, yeah, I'll put a sky in, I guess, but like I wanted to work on the shadows on Norman's face for this one. Like, I don't know, it was all just a process for each page. It was a little different every time, just because of what was in the page.
Yeah, and well, I think that's something that's really cool, is just the versatility you have, because like every page was kind of its own little puzzle for you to solve. Because we kept getting to all these new environments. It's like, oh, here's a brightly lit room full of characters, and you gotta have different skin tones for all of them. Gotta figure out how to do lighting from like this particular direction. But then, you know, this next scene, they're in a collapsing building where it's like dark and dusty, and it's just like a completely different tone and environment. And the fact that you were able to transition so well is just... you got skill. You got moxie, kid. You got spunkoxy.
I think the coloring...
I'm bringing it back.
What was that?
I think the coloring does a lot of the heavy lifting to make it look like the show.
I mean,
pencils can only get it so far. It's the colors that...
I agree to an extent, but also, like, your pencils are fucking amazing.
If there's ever a part that isn't 100% on model the way he draws, like maybe this shot he draws Spider-Man's foot a little bit more like how Dane would draw it.
By the end, you said that like poses were starting to get a little stiff, so you eased back into your style a little more.
Yeah, the first dozen pages or so, everything was really heavily referenced, and it started looking stiff, and I didn't like it. So then I changed the size of page I was using and kind of leaned back on my own sensibilities and art style, and I think it worked a little bit better.
Well, something I've learned is that sometimes you can trick it if you can't get it like 100% on model, as long as the head and the face, and maybe a couple things like the chest, like the way you draw like Spider-Man's pecs or something. Like
Spider-Man's so large; they're the most important part of his character design.
If you make sure his proportions are about right and his head is on model as you can get it, if his limbs are a little bit more sharp and angular, or if his feet are a little bit more blocky, or if his fist is a little bit more square, like that stuff, you stop noticing because, well, his costume is all the right colors, his chest is the right size, his limbs are about the right size, his head is the same. The rest doesn't matter. You just stop noticing that. So you can get away with it in a lot of spots.
Mm-hmm.
It really worked out. It's really a collaborative process between all of us for how the book came together, because Xavier, when writing it, had like a lot of different visions for certain scenes, but like we took it in a direction.
I would say everything up until like the final few pages is pretty much exactly how I imagined it. Like as I was writing it, I had all the colors and lighting and tones and characters in my head. You guys made a little bit of an executive choice with the final fight scene with Doc Ock and Shocker and Scorpion that I actually think is better than what I had planned, which was to make it look more like the Oscorp scenes when it's been like blown out and like collapsed and broken. Because in my head it looked more like the lab from like the underwater lab from the first Green Goblin episode, or the one where Harry finds all the equipment when he's Goblin. Like really high key lighting, lots of blue tones, like really bright overhead lights that just kind of bath everything in like vivid colors. And you're like, you guys, particularly Jacob, decided to go for a look like the more, blown up lab from like some of the other episodes, and it makes a lot more sense contextually because a bomb did just go off in that room, so why would all the lights be on? Why would it look all pristine?
The whole area.
He's just fucking carving holes in the walls with the gauntlets. So like the decision to make it all dusty and dark and like blown out and look like a war zone just looked so much better and fit so much better that I didn't even complain. As soon as I saw it, I was like, you know what? That's way better. Perfect. Go for it. Run with that. And that's one of the nice things about collaborating with people who like really know what they're doing, is they can make big decisions to change shit around like that. And I trust them enough to just go for it because, I mean, these guys they're the fucking pros. They kick ass. They can go off script and it's fine. Or even when Dane decides to draw like a scene just a little bit differently from what I had in the script, usually it's because his idea is better. because like there's a really subtle example that I like is when he beats Scorpion and Shocker in the same page. The way I had it described in the pages was like a little different from what got drawn, but what ended up I think I had a different idea is that he yanks Shocker's gauntlet at Scorpion, but you changed it so he yanks Scorpion in the path of Shocker's gauntlet, and it just fits so much better for the action of the panel, and just like it just makes more sense regarding what happens next with throwing them into each other. And it's those little things that you don't even mind because it just works.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes down to like clarity and storytelling. It's easier to show it kind of this way, and it works a little bit better if he yanks Scorpion instead of trying to communicate. Okay, how are we gonna move?
It's easier
direction.
to show that whole action with all three characters being visible on one panel.
Yeah. Like, the thing that I wrote might work better is, like a screenplay. Like, if we were actually writing an episode of the show. You could probably figure out a way to show that. But when you're doing sequential art, where you have to convey a lot of information in as few images as possible, little creative concessions like that have to be made. And like I said, I trust him to do that because I mean he's also worked with enough of my scripts in the past. Like we've I don't know, I would say he's drawn like 90 pages of things based on scripts that I've written over the past like 2 or 3 years. So
and it's just variants of Lost but with different characters.
Yeah. It's like here's Lost with Peter Parker and MJ, but like Green Goblin's sitting outside of the window laughing, and that one was really funny. There's Lost, but with Isaac Clarke and Nicole from Dead Space, and but I think Dane and I have a really good shorthand because we've worked together so many times. Wait, what were you gonna say?
If I had to draw Lost more than once, I'd be having that thing's gonna haunt me till the day I die.
I love how he agreed to it because he didn't know what it was the first time. He was just like, I don't get this meme. What is this? I was just like, just draw it. It's funny. Just do this, right? And then I put it in the video, and then we started getting into this phase because like Lost had like a little bit of like a return. It's one of those memes that's pretty dead, but it came back for a little bit briefly in like late 2018. So we kept just blowing him up with variants of Lost to the point that he got mad at it. And then we started editing stuff like a newspaper of Abe Simpson screaming at the sky with the caption, "Old man yells at Lost." It was you darn kids and your memes.
Okay, boomer.
I do want to talk about because we recorded it and then it got lost because OBS like freaked out for a second.
It got what, Xavier?
It No, let me finish. I do want.
Podcast is over. Dane's leaving.
I want to talk about the day before the comic went up, where you and I were panicking and having to like change things over and over to get the book like perfect. I like I said, I think I exported the full comic about 11 times in that like 2-hour stretch that night, because every time I fixed something, you just went to a different page and found something else that was off. And it was getting frustrating because you're like, hey, shouldn't this word bubble have a comma? And I'm like, stay in your lane. We're fixing coloring shit.
Should. And then it did, and I was satisfied.
It does have a comma now. You bastard. You little shit.
I still have the old version of this page. Like, it's... Okay, the time dilation accelerator is probably the most important thing in this whole fucking book, and it's not even colored on this page. I was
Neither of us noticed it so many times that I thought, you know what, it's fine. I bet no one else will notice it either. It was fine.
I didn't notice it because I was fucking tired and had just woken up and got right back to coloring and said, okay, it's done.
And I was tired because I had been awake that whole day for like 14 hours by that point. So we're both just like half asleep, just like, oh my god, okay. You gotta color in this rock on this page. That's on the wrong layer. The tentacle is above the rock in this one.
Dane was like, I'm going to sleep happy knowing that I finished my part.
He didn't have to fuck with any of that. So he probably came back the next morning in the group chat we have for working on the book, 70 new messages, and he just kind of scrolled through them, and it's all caps, screaming and cussing.
It was 99 plus new messages.
It was so many he couldn't even keep track anymore. It could be like 300 for all we know. Oh man, and I kept, even the next day after the book was out, he found stuff that needed to be fixed, because while I was just scanning my eyes up and down every page trying to make sure it was perfect, I must have bumped one of the word bubbles, because it was on the copy I have exported before the one, it was fine, so it had to have been that night. Is I bumped one of the word bubbles on my program, like just accidentally clicked on it real fast, and just made it like 3% smaller, so it like fucked up and cut a word in half and put it on the next line, and it looks stupid, and I had to fix it, and it's fixed on 2 copies.
Never gonna be like that.
Oh, we can change it on the website, maybe.
Yeah, I think I can.
Okay, just go to the one from the Google Doc. Fix it, please, so I feel less shame.
But it's stuck in the Twitter thread.
Oh. And on the Instagram story.
Oh no.
I mean, yeah. I can fix that, but it'd be really weird if I just started posting the comic again from page 9.
Oh.
One day.
Whatever. Anyway, some of my favorite stuff from working on the comic is either writing the scripts or lettering the pages, where Jacob is like, I'm screen sharing with him, and he's watching the process. And
the script side of things was a little different, because I would be at school coloring for a bit, realize Xavier's sleeping schedule is just horrible.
That summer it was broken. Like, I'm on a pretty regular sleep schedule right now, but that summer I was like going to bed at like 7 a.m. and then waking up at like 6 p.m.
But the thing goes for like with that though is that when he would go to sleep, I'd be like halfway through my fucking school day.
Oh yeah.
So I'd just in the morning, I'd just be like, "Hey, are you writing?" He'd be like, "Yeah, come watch." So I'll open up the Google Doc and just watch him write the script. So there's a lot of in-jokes.
There's a lot of in-jokes where I was like writing dialogue and I'm like, I don't know what to have him say here, so I just write something shocking and horrible to make him laugh.
What's Spider-Man gonna call Doc Ock in this panel?
Oh yeah, and because I ended up with
from the debris.
He ends up saying, "Hey, tentacle brain" on that page, right? But I must have wrote 15 horrible things before I got to that. Do you remember any of them, or just the one?
I remember the one.
And do you want to say it?
The one that stuck out the most was Spider-Man comes out from the rubble of the lab that he was just thrown into. He comes back out holding the time dilation accelerator, and he says to his foe, "Hey, baby penis!"
And I just, as I was writing it, I could just picture his laughter at school and getting him in trouble. I was like, what's the funniest thing I could write right now that would get Jacob like yelled at by his teacher? And yeah, there was a lot of that. Every time I had to write a quip for Spidey, there would be like 6 or 7 different versions of it where I'm just like, what's funny and also sounds natural for him to say? And then at some points it was just like I was just like completely phoning it in, and Jacob was like having to like help suggest things to help me get it right. So I guess we'll give him a little bit of a writing credit on that. You would like watch me letter while I screen share. So I would take a new page where the art is done and then lay it down on the canvas and then just go and then click over and you see the script on my screen. and on this really small panel, the script has a paragraph of dialogue to fit in it, and you're just like, what are we gonna do? And I just go, I don't know. Let me think. All right.
I would just look at it. Where's all that?
I remember even Dane was sending pages, and some of them actually were fine. Like, he was sending pages, and after you saw the trials and tribulations of the lettering process, you got like upset.
I was like,
You're
is this gonna be okay?
Holy shit! Like, you'd message me like where Dane couldn't see it, and you're like, can we work with that one? Does he need to redraw it? And I'm like, no, it's fine. I'll figure it out. And there were spots where it was so bad that you had to actually like crop and shrink art so that there was more room for the dialogue, and then redraw shit like Jonah's hand on one page, or like the page where like water clone MJ is melting. You had to shrink that.
I didn't have Procreate at that point, so I couldn't have like the straight line feature.
Oh yeah, so you couldn't draw a new background for it, so you just put this black like shadowy aura around it to go, this panel is sad, and it actually works really well.
We're now entering the Q&A section of this podcast. I'm eating fries. If you hear munching, it's Dane.
Eating during the podcast, you inconsiderate fuck.
Read the questions.
Yeah, we got questions from you guys. We asked on our Twitter that you should follow because I know that advertisement, it made some numbers, but it didn't make like usual Spider-Man numbers. Usually you guys go fucking crazy when Spider-Man's in but I don't know. So we got some questions for you guys about this wonderful evening for us. And the first one we talked about a little bit, but what's your opinion on the show?
Love it. I appreciate it now more as an adult than I did as a kid. And I think that says a lot about the fact that it's an animated show, is because normally it's the other way around, right?
Yep.
I really liked that show growing up, although I feel like I probably saw about as much of it that Xavier did, which was like, some of the DVDs, and then like a handful of reruns on TV. But I think the difference was younger than Xavier when I saw all that stuff. And I saw Spider-Man, and I just thought he was cool. So I liked it immediately.
That guy's awesome. I want to be friends with that guy.
It was fucking cool, dude. He was having secret wars, and I didn't even know what the fuck a secret war was back then.
I knew what a secret wars was. I remember I only saw the Secret Wars episode like way after the fact, and I was like, oh my god, they're adapting that. And by that point I was like 12, and it was like a rerun. I was like, I thought they already did the Venom stuff. Why are they doing Secret Wars 2?
Not how that works in that series, because Venom's popular.
You gotta do them first.
But yeah, I love that show a lot. I actually met Christopher Daniel Barnes twice and got things signed by him. Got to talk to him a lot the first time I met him, but I talked a little bit less the second time just because I had already talked to him, and there was a line accumulating since the voice actress mermaid that plays Ariel was next to him, and so they were gathering quite a big crowd at the convention. Yeah. Although he liked my fucking Steve Ditko Spider-Man costume. He liked it. He did. He can spot out that classic Spider-Man stuff because he's a fan.
I like how he got to start voicing that character when he was like 20?
Yeah, he was like 20-something.
Like, he was really young, and like they were just like, hey, you want to be Spider-Man? And normally they get like a guy who's like 35 and just sounds young, but for that they were like, no, let's get an actual kid for it.
Yeah, so I really like this show. I know Dane's liked it. I grew up with it when it was on.
Dane, what's your opinion of the show?
Yeah, I kind of love the show.
Kinda, just a little bit.
It was just enough to make the comic.
No, yeah.
Not anymore beyond that. Like if it's on, I won't even really watch it on the rerun.
I grew up with the show. So it was probably my first introduction to Spider-Man.
Wow.
I would assume, because I grew up in its heyday while it was airing, and I still got all my toys, all my Happy Meal toys, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
You know what? For me, I think my first introduction to Spider-Man, and this is kind of funny, was the PS1 game, which is like a weird offshoot of the cartoon.
Oh,
like because it has like all the same characters, but it shares only one voice actor.
No, it has Jennifer Hale as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. So it has Black Cat as the same voice actress, and then Doc Ock, and then everyone else is recast, which is why as a kid I never associated the show and the game. But it was meant to be a game for the show.
Because they, even in one of the commercials, they use footage from the 90s cartoon to advertise.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because it's like, it came out after it came out, what, like 2 years after that show had been canceled, and Reno had already been Spider-Man in another cartoon.
Yeah.
So they got him. It's so weird.
But another hint at it is that what are all the characters who cameo is like, except for Human Torch, who's a little bit of a weird outlier, it's Punisher. And well, I mean, he's Spidey's friend in the comics, but in that show they never really hung out. Yeah. But they had Captain America, Punisher, and Daredevil were all the I would say the biggest crossovers in that show. Maybe Blade also counts, but he wasn't in that. And all of them made it in. And then for the sequel, it was the 90s X-Men that looked like their designs were straight out of the cartoon, and it was even Beast, who was like the one who hung out with him the most during that crossover episode.
They got history.
Yeah. He said the word diurnal, and I don't know what it means, but it's always stuck with me that's a really smart sounding word. My diurnal patrol, and I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? What is that a word? Is that real?
So our next question actually leads in pretty well into that last one. What's your favorite episode of the show?
Turning Point.
You stole my answer.
Oh well, okay, all right, okay, I'll change it then. Then the first Venom episode is just such a solid episode, because that whole episode is a fight scene basically. There's like 3 seconds of like a breather in there where he goes to Eddie's apartment, and then the whole rest of it is just battle, and it's awesome.
I mean, like, I grew up with the Venom Saga DVD, and I've probably bought like 2 or 3 of those DVDs because I actually wore those out, which is significantly harder to do on a DVD than it is with a VHS. Yeah, so those Venom episodes are super good, like Alien Costume Saga and like those Carnage ones. Those are the ones that I know the best. The last episode's also really good with like Spider Carnage and all that. Those are definitely some of my favorites. I don't know if I can narrow it down. All right, next question. Will we see new villains that didn't appear in the show?
Tune in to find out.
Tune in to find. That's just that's the most non-committal way of saying yes. Check it out.
Yeah.
Maybe.
How long?
I don't think it'll be in the way they think that we'll do it, because there's a really obvious way to handle that, and we're not going for that.
Well, how long? Here's one that we were talking a bit about earlier, but this one kind of a little bit more specific. How long did it take to nail the art style for the series? Was it a lot of trial and error?
A little bit. I don't think not as much as people might think.
Because again, like we said, it's really similar to your regular art style. It wasn't that big of a leap.
It was more of trying to not rely so much on reference, but be able to adapt it into my own style, so it comes out a little bit more natural. If that makes sense.
It looks more like a Dane drawing.
Yeah.
And on my end of it, it was like for the backgrounds, I think is what took me the longest, because you can like compare like page 1 and look at like the last panel of Spider-Man swinging around, the background in that, and then compare it to like when he's flying around with Goblin later on, and it's like fucking night and day with like the quality. I fucking hate that first panel of Spider-Man swinging around so much. Because I don't know, it just doesn't. There was a lot of pencil lines still in there that were like, they keep it together like well enough, but. And I kept the pencil lines in there from the backgrounds on the later stuff, although removing them occasionally when I wanted to get in there for highlights and such. But yeah, like I wanted to not have to rely on the pencils. I wanted to get those painted textures like noticeable, because in those first few pages they're very smooth. It's not, I wouldn't really say painting in the beginning. It's kind of just like things have gradients to them. But I started getting better at that by the end of page 2, and definitely by like page 7 I was fucking kicking it.
Yeah, and I didn't just kind of pick it up and start drawing, 94 Peter. I still did a handful of my own model sheet stuff, just to try and, so I'm not constantly referencing stuff. So, if I had to draw Peter on a page and then 3 images of him, I could just draw him and stuff like that.
Didn't you draw the time dilation accelerator wrong in like on page 2 or something?
Yeah, because it's super inconsistent in the show, especially.
It is. I changed it. I changed it on one page, like the scene in the lab. There was a detail on the back, the like fucking battery pack, I guess is what it is, and like you drew it a certain way, and the reference image I had like in Procreate looking at it, it was different, and I said, oh, this is wrong, I'll just fix it really quick. And then like I was watching an episode on my TV where Hobgoblin's using it, and I saw the back of it out of the corner of my eye, and it was the way that you drew it, and I said, what the fuck?
Because yeah,
it's not on model.
I tried to get it from all different angles, and then I made my own model sheet so at least I could be consistent.
Yeah.
In the way I drew it, but it's still a little different on page 2 than it shows up at the end of the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This person's just asking for spoilers. We can probably answer one of them. He asks, what will the main plot be, and who are the main characters?
Main character?
Why would you ask that? We can't tell you. What? Hey, who dies in Endgame? I haven't seen it yet. I just want to know before I watch it. Like, what? No.
Read to find out.
Read to find out.
The character is Spider-Man. You might have not known.
Spider-Man, he shows up. He's like, hey, it's me, Spider-Man.
That's what
We're gonna go find Mary Jane.
That's actually pretty. That's pretty clever, Jacob. I like that. Good work.
Will Spidey team up with other Marvel characters? Will Sandman show up?
No. Maybe. I don't know.
Tune in to find out.
Tune in to find out. Let's like shotgun them. Let's go through these fast, because the main segment of the podcast ended up being way longer than I thought it would be.
Do you plan on introducing elements from the comics that weren't used or weren't created while the series was on the air? I burped during the middle of your question.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not intentionally going, here's a thing from the comics I wish was in the show.
Yeah, we're not really adapting storylines from the comics. This is a pretty original story. Although there are references to stuff.
There might be something that was like in a comic at some point in there, but it wasn't like an intentionally direct reference. It was just like kind of it was more than likely just a coincidence or something that I particularly liked in the comic and then just like subconsciously put in.
There's one that you did specifically do for issue 2 near the end.
Oh, wait, yeah, you're right. So there's one. There's one for sure that I know. That I was like, yeah, that's a thing from the books that I want in the show. Or, like, if they got more episodes, I would like. So, yes, there's one. We'll say that.
This one asks, with you guys making a continuation to the 94 show, will you guys ever do continuations of other stories, such as Raimi's Spider-Man?
Probably not. It just takes so much effort, you know. We're also only really good at drawing the one art style, so we'll probably stick with this. You know?
Yeah, trying to learn like multiple different art styles would just be.
Yeah, like especially spectacular. Yeah. I mean, that would just be that would take a lot more effort than I think we're willing to put in for a fan comic. You know, it's just...
I'm gonna burn your house down. All right, next question. Are there any other planned projects like this that you want to do after the book is done?
I would like to finish our original comic that we worked on for a couple months, that we could maybe get published and sold in stores. That would be nice. But, like, we'll do that later.
My girlfriend's been inking some of that.
Yeah, and it looks pretty good.
What gave
and then she accidentally flattened the layer on it, so now we can't use that page.
I know. I called her right after I got out of school. I called her right after I got out of school, and she was just already screaming because she was like, I saved this, and it was fine, and I opened it today, and it's fucked. Anyway, what gave you all the idea to make this comic?
Yeah, we just... Dane just found that he found the model sheets, and we're like, we could use this.
How many issues do we have planned for right now?
5.
There you go.
That's it. Just
very
5.
simple. Very simple answer. Here we go. How long did this take? Issue 1 took from like the end of March till the Tuesday it came out.
Yeah, like we were working on it like that morning.
And I think like that's one of the longer issues. Like I don't know. I think the later ones are shorter than Xavier thought they were.
We thought they were going to be like 30 pages each, and then I looked back and I was like, wait, this one's only 20, this one's 21. They're less than issue 1. We could get these done probably way faster. There's like 4 or 5 less pages.
Yeah, but I think originally it was only supposed to be 4 issues.
Yeah, we added one.
Yeah.
There was no way.
My idea for the last one got too big, so I had to cut it in half.
Well, there was also some unfinished business from some other stuff that would have just taken a long time to finish.
Yeah.
So it had to become a whole issue.
Yeah, like, there's just an idea that was just, like, too big to just, like, rush through in, like, a 5-page segment. It just wouldn't have felt authentic to what we were trying to do, so I had to give it more room to breathe.
Next question asks, what was the hardest part of making this comic, and what's your main goal for the future of this comic?
The hardest part was probably just the art in general, because like I wrote it over the course of like a week, and we've been just coloring and drawing for God knows how long. Right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Like the cover, we had a cover for a little bit that I started coloring and then was like, I'll work on pages for now. And then like a week or 2 before the issue came out, Dane was like, I'm gonna draw a new cover. I don't like the old one.
And we were like pretty sure on it too. We were like, yeah, it's good. It's a good cover. I like it. Honestly, I think the new one looks better. Can I put the old one up on screen as like a...
Yeah, like the most completed version of it that's available.
So like be aware that it's unfinished, but yeah, this is what we had before.
You can throw up the pencils next to it too.
Yeah.
Anyway, somebody asked, I'm sure this will get answered, but how'd Captain America get out of the Phantom thing he was stuck in?
Well, okay. My logic behind that is that like Madam Web had her powers like pull him out of stasis to bring him to the Secret Wars stuff, and after he like
Madam Web and
it was Madam Web and Beyonder, because they were facilitating the whole thing. I kept thinking to myself, they said that they're gonna put everyone back where they came from after Secret Wars was over, before taking Spider-Man on the Spider Carnage adventure. Beyonder and Madam Web would be a couple of the biggest assholes in the universe if they put him back in purgatory stasis. Cause like he just fucking spent all this past like week trying to save this planet. You're gonna drop him back into stasis to fight Red Skull again? No, just put him on Earth. Just dump him in New York so then he can just go do that now. I felt that would have been better for the show if they had done that, if they had acknowledged that they did that.
And that answers like questions for how he shows up in later universe animated shit.
Yeah.
Next one is, will Ben Reilly show up since Miles Warren took our Peter's DNA?
Why do people keep asking for spoilers?
Well, I mean, we just saw Ben Reilly. I don't think we need to. He's in the last episode.
We'll see if the Ben Reilly has any kind of cameo. You never say never, but I don't know. Some part of me deep down actually doesn't know because I can't remember exactly what I wrote because it was all written while I was half asleep. So maybe what?
Do you want me to answer correctly then?
Sure.
No.
Oh, okay.
What's your most disliked episode of the 90s cartoon?
I didn't like
any of the Morbius ones.
Any of the Morbius ones? Any of the fucking forgotten, the 6 Forgotten Warriors or whatever it's called?
Yeah.
That arc dragged so long and was so full of stuff I did not care about.
We have to go find... Why is it whenever we introduce Peter Parker's parents, it's just not fun?
Every time you bring him in, it's always got to be the dumbest thing you can think of. They used to work for Red Skull, but it was a clone of Red Skull, and now they're robots, and the other Red Skull is killed, but the real one comes back and is trying to assassinate them, and then they don't know he's Spider-Man, and then Maximum Carnage happens, and then it's just like whenever you read Maximum Carnage, there's just like a couple of segments that are really weird out of context now, where Peter just goes and talks to his dad, and if you didn't know the prior about that, you're just like, what the fuck? It's a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, for the longest time, I thought The Spot was the worst episode, because Owen's voice is so fucking annoying. But there's this episode in like season 4 or 5 where Spider-Man and the lizard get taken down in the sewer.
Oh yeah,
gladiator lizards, and it's just the most awful thing ever. It's not fun. It's stupid, and I hated every second of it.
I liked that episode because there was a lot of MJ covering Peter and helping out with him being Spider-Man. I liked that stuff.
Well, that stuff was good, but the gladiator lizards.
And one of them is like this gladiator shit is lame. I'm gonna help Spider-Man. They're like, kill her.
You know what? That was one of those episodes where I was just like, oh, I don't care about this. I'm like, it's not relevant for the comic, and it's like not something I really particularly am interested in. So I just completely checked out and just like started doing something else. Like I think I was editing a video while that episode was playing. So none of that absorbed. I don't know what any of that was really.
It's bad.
Okay, we love the show, but there's some episodes that are really rough, and it's like you could skip show. That one. Yeah, any good show. I mean, you know what? I'm certain if I went back and rewatched it right now, there's probably an episode or two from Spectacular Spider-Man where I'm like, I could skip this one. I don't like this one.
I fucking hate the Colonel Jupiter episode of that show.
I don't mind it because Venom has some cool parts in it.
I only watch the Venom parts.
Oh, well, yeah, there you go. But even then, I thought the fight with the fight at the end with Colonel Jupiter was fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting off topic. Back to questions.
Anyway, do you plan on bringing Venom back in this story to give better closure to his character and maybe hint at Lethal Protector?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned to find out.
Why continue the animated series other than any other Spider-Man
Because I think it's the one that got Jack the absolute hardest, except for, well, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different Spider-Man show that
MTV Spider-Man had it pretty hard.
I think the one with, like, Spider-Man the Animated Series was that, like, it was the one that ran the longest, so the fact that it, like, had all this stuff built up to a happy ending that never came, like, hurt the most. Because all the other ones are like, here's, like, you know, here's, like, 10 or 13 episodes of just a pretty decent show, and then the cliffhanger sucks, but it wasn't something they were building up to for, like, 3 seasons, you know? MJ goes missing in like halfway through
season 3,
which is almost halfway through the show, like a little over half, and we spend all this time building up to her coming back and then never see it. So it's the one where you feel like it earned a proper ending the most. So it's the one that's like that hurts the most because they didn't get it.
Yeah, MJ's the do this.
So yeah, the whole thing is just we love this particular version of MJ so much, and she's just so cool. Like, she's cute and she's a nice lady. Gotta save MJ.
Yeah,
you gotta.
Somebody asked, "Is there a meaning to life?"
What? To buy our comics and read our comics and support our comics. There you go. That's it.
What's
if
the
you
end
do
game?
any of those, what?
What's the end game for this comic?
Make a cool comic that people enjoy. That's the end game. That's our goal. And also to have Spider-Man finally get laid after all these years.
This is a good question. I retweeted this one a day ago. Did you utilize high-tech software such as Spider-Man Cartoon Maker to build the storyboards?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know what that is, but I'm going to say yes.
I hope Dane knew because he laughed.
Spider-Man Cartoon Maker is my middle name.
It's so fucking funny.
Dane Spider-Man Cartoon Maker Amiot. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
When drawing fight scenes or writing the dialogue, did you hear like the music and like, you know, the sound mixing and such from the show?
I actually would sometimes throw on the old soundtrack from the show to help me get in the mood for writing parts of it. So definitely, it really helped me make sure like to keep what kind of tone and pace I was going for, because the music fits perfect for that show.
You know, I think I watched this show so much, like, while I was coloring during that last week, just to crunch it all in, that I realized when I was just walking around, I heard the soundtrack from the show, and I was not listening to it, and I was like, holy fuck, I'm immersed.
You may have some kind of minor form of psychosis.
I'm going to say I'm glad it wasn't for me, because I find myself humming the soundtrack. Thing. Like, it's so ingrained in my brain now.
Somebody asked if we would see new villains that didn't appear in the show. This guy's asking, will we just see new characters that haven't been in the show?
No, I think pretty much every character in the story that plays a part is someone that, like, was a player in the show at some point that we saw, because the whole idea is to make it a love letter to the show. So I felt like adding a lot of new original characters for it wouldn't really feel authentic. Yeah, that's too fan fiction-y. That's something I hate in fan fictions, actually, is just adding characters out of nowhere. Like, I wanted to play with the toy box that I was presented of just, here's this set of characters and this set of characters from these things. So, you know, stuff that was already established instead of trying to create something entirely new. Because the idea of, like, ending a show, like, I've always stood by this writing advice is, when you're trying to end a story, don't introduce a new idea or new character right at the end of it, because then it just feels cheap and kind of messes up, like, the the whole point of concluding everything, because it establishes something new instead of closing off something that was already there. All right, it's a pretty solid episode. Good work, everyone. I loved it. Thanks everyone for showing up, and thank you for listening to this podcast. And check out issue 2 whenever it's out. I'm not sure if we'll do another ad for it on the channel. We probably will, just to make sure people know it's a thing still. But be on the lookout. And make sure to go follow us at the appropriate social medias so you'll always keep getting updates. And you know what? The nice thing now is that now that this is no longer a secret project, we can post updates of things like little hints and teasers.
Yeah, because we would
just non-spoilery ones.
We were doing teasers to the lead up of announcing it, but it was always very like, it was kind of vague. You know?
This could be a Spider-Man thing for sure, but what Spider-Man thing we didn't want to say?
The biggest giveaway was the Daily Bugle one that had stuff about Red Skull and Electro, but I feel like only if you had known.
No one really like read that though.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people knew from that one though, because a lot of people were like, "Ooh, animated series," on Instagram at least.
Hell yeah! All right. Anyway. Thanks for checking it out, and we're glad you guys liked it, and we love you so much, and read it again if you haven't already. And bye. See you around. Read a comic. Bye. Oh, no!